This is the Cancer Interviews podcast. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Bruce Morton. For our guest on this episode, it has been an arduous breast cancer journey that began in 1996, but we're very happy to report she's still with us and that she's here to share her story. She is Sheila Romanski of Corona, California, and now it's time to hear that story. So Sheila, welcome to Cancer Interviews.
Thank you for having me, Bruce.
Well, we want to start off the way we always do, and that's to learn a little bit more about you, your life away from cancer. So if you would, tell us a bit about where you're from, what you've done for work, and what you like to do for fun.
Okay, so I am a mother of 4 adult children, and I obviously am from Corona, and I don't do a whole lot of extracurricular activities because I like to volunteer. So I do a lot of volunteer work. And we raised our kids in Corona, California, and now they're spread all over the country and doing well, doing adult things.
Okay, now in terms of your cancer journey, for all of us who have survived cancer, there was that time in which we thought our health was normal, and then it became something other than normal. For you, when did you first notice something that wasn't quite right?
So it's really kind of an interesting story because I really had no signs. I had no clues. There was nothing to get me to the doctor except that the fact that my husband had been changing jobs and we were uninsured. And then all of a sudden he had insurance and I had a terrible ringing in my ears. So it was not related to the cancer, but it got me in and made me go get a full physical. And at that point, the doctor did the breast exam and he said, everything looks great. You know, you're 36, it's a little early, but let's go ahead and do a baseline mammogram. So we had no idea. He didn't have any idea. I didn't have any idea. We just did a baseline. So, and just a little bit about that, it was kind of fascinating too, is that when they did the baseline and they finished, they sent me out to the waiting room and they called me back. And they took my hand and put it on the lump and said, have you ever felt this? It did not register in my mind that she was showing me that I had a lump in my breast. Like seriously, it did not even register, which was good because I had to drive from there to the doctor's appointment I had afterwards. So fortunately, I feel God struck me dumb right there. And from the time I left the x-ray room to I got to my doctor, they'd already called him and told him it was a problem.
So you've undergone this mammogram, you've gone to the doctor. What happened after that?
So then we were actually going to be talking about my ear that morning, and he walked in. I said, so what are we going to do about this ear? He says, well, we're going to put it on hold right now. We have something a little more important to talk to. And from that point on, it was a whirlwind. Like, okay, we found this lump. You've got to go get it checked. At that point, it was just basically referring me to an oncologist right away. So they pretty much knew it was 1 centimeter. It was palpable, so you could feel it. So that's why I always encourage women and men, don't forget to do your exams. Had I been doing them, I probably would have found it sooner. But anyway, so at that point, the oncologist, who was a surgeon, said, let's just go in and get it. So we did not even know for sure that it was cancer until I had a lumpectomy and lymph node dissection. So they went in and I woke up, and the surgeon was experienced, and I woke up from surgery with my husband telling me it was cancer.
For all of us who get that news, it's horrific news. So we already know that. So we're not going to ask you if it was horrific, but everybody, the kind of news they get is a little bit different, and each person is different. So how did you handle that news when you got it?
So, and I was 36 years old, so it was especially horrific. Like my kids were in school. I had twins that are kindergartners. I had a first grader, a fourth grader. You know, very active in sports, very active in church, very active in school. It was very horrific. So fortunately for me, I had a very good friend who was a pastor's wife, and she was at the ball field. So I ran over to the ball field immediately, and she said, Sheila, let's just not worry until we find out what it is. We could get it, they could get in there and find it's absolutely nothing. So I did a lot of self-talk to live in that space. I tried really hard to live in that space, that we aren't sure it's cancer, but I had an experienced surgeon and he was pretty sure.
By the way, we're confident you'll be able to learn some tips and tools to help you through your personal cancer journey. But first, we'd like to invite you to please give us a like, leave a comment or review below, and share this story with your friends. Kindly click on the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon. That way you'll be notified the next time we post an interview. And we want to remind you on Cancer Interviews, we are not distributors of medical advice. If you seek medical advice, please do what Sheila did and seek that advice from a licensed healthcare professional. So, Sheila, now you've gotten this news that you have cancer and that you can't leave it unaddressed. It has to be treated. If you would, describe your treatment plan and if you had any options.
Yeah, so at that time, I really did have not a lot of options. I mean, I had options, but protocol for where I was at, which is their standard care protocol, being standard care for that particular diagnosis, was that we do the lumpectomy, which we did. So he went in, he removed it. We found out right away that it was cancer. The following week, we did another surgery, which went in and got my lymph nodes. Now, here's the really cool thing. Back then, they had to take all of my lymph nodes. So they took 30 some odd lymph nodes and they were all clear. So that's cool. That was really awesome, apparently, but obviously, but the thing that's really cool now is they don't have to do that. So I always, for the rest of my life, have to worry about lymphedema in my left arm because I have no lymph nodes to take care of any poisons or toxins or anything that my body has to get rid of. So now what they do is they just go after the sentinel node. And so they only have to remove a few lymph nodes. So that started the year after me. So anyway, where I'm at is they had to remove all of my lymph nodes. And so at that point, protocol was to do just radiation and the surgery, both the surgeries and radiation.
All right. And what was the toughest part of that treatment regimen?
Radiation. It just was really, because I was at that time, I was very large breasted and the skin is it became like a raw diaper rash. So it was very raw and open and it was difficult, but there were ointments that I could use. So I would say that was, the hardest part, and the fact that you go every day. I have 4 kids at home. I have to get to school, and I also did daycare. So I actually had a lot of kids at my house all the time. So the going in every single day, it was a bit exhausting, I have to say. And it went on for weeks.
Now, you touched on something that I would like you to address in slightly greater detail. You had 4 children, 4 small children at the time. They're adults now, but they were small children at the time, and small children need attention.
Yes.
How did you balance those two things of raising 4 small children and dealing with breast cancer?
So for me, it was a godsend because I could focus on what they were doing and I could focus on their lives and I didn't have to focus on what was going on. But I still had to take care of myself. And fortunately for me, I had a large network of people. People were bringing us dinners and, offering to help with the kids. It was, I really, because of my large network of friends, because we've been in the community, made it much easier.
Now, it seems like the treatment for this first diagnosis was eventually successful. How exciting was it to feel like you were getting to the point of survivorship?
So it really was. Now, mind you, it didn't last long because exactly 1 year from my first diagnosis, we were actually on vacation. And I had driven my kids back to Arkansas, which is where my family lives, and my boys were playing baseball. And as I was driving one day, I just kind of reached up here like this and I felt a lump. So it's very unusual for the cancer to metastasize this way, but mine had metastasized that way. So I had to kind of play it off during vacation. Oh, I found this thing. I'm sure it was the seatbelt rubbing. No big deal. And then I got back home and of course immediately went to the doctor. And what had happened is that I went into the doctor and he said, it looked like it was metastasis. This was my same doctor, but my husband wasn't feeling comfortable with this doctor, and I wasn't necessarily either. So in all of that, I got the name of a doctor to get a second opinion, and we went in for a second opinion, and he said, most definitely we need to get in and do something here. And what they found is that I had a 5-centimeter inoperable tumor in this area right here.
Near your shoulder.
Yeah, it's like in the shoulder bone, like right by the shoulder bone, collarbone, right by the collarbone. Yeah.
So what happened next?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So what happened next?
Yeah, and so the reason it was inoperable is because if you get in here, there's a lot of stuff going on in here between our brains and our bodies. So they were afraid if they did anything, it could cause worse damage. So in the meantime, my doctor said we're going to do, my original oncologist said we're going to do a stem cell transplant, and he went through all the details and told me what it was going to be. And like I said, we weren't feeling real comfortable with him, so we went for the second opinion, and he said the exact same thing. But I have to say the difference in the doctor I ended up going with, I could hear him literally, it sounded like he was running up and down the halls to get to his patients. So like he was high energy, ready to roll. And when I went in, he said, your blood levels are this. We both knew they were bad, but he didn't make me feel like it was bad. So so at that point we decided to do the stem cell transplant. And so what that is a little bit, what we did was called an autologous stem cell transplant. So they collected my stem cells prior to doing high-dose chemotherapy. And even before that, I had to do 4 conventional chemo treatments. So there was about 12 weeks that I did that. And then we started preparing for the transplant.
And how did that go?
I'm going to say it was a bit tough. I did okay, except, okay, so what they do, I'll just explain that a little bit. So what they do is, mine actually started, they did the stem cell collection the Monday after Thanksgiving. And so I went in, I was at the hospital for 3 days. I drove back and forth, so I didn't stay in, but I was there all day. And you're hooked up to a machine, and it is running your blood out of your body through this machine 8 times a day. So it takes every ounce of blood out of your body and puts it back in. It's a continuous roll. So it doesn't it's not like I was sitting there eating cake and stuff because they wanted me to keep my energy up. So it wasn't, it's not like I was sitting there like, oh my gosh. But it is a continuous 8-day process or 8-hour process. And it sounds like the spin cycle of your washing machine. So they hook you up and your blood's going in and it's just spinning the stem cells out and collecting them. And then, so I actually got mine done in 2 days. So I had to do that 2 days. And then I went home. And I said it was the day after Thanksgiving. It was actually the Monday before Thanksgiving. So I spent Thanksgiving with my family. And then the Monday after Thanksgiving, I went into the hospital to begin the high-dose chemotherapy. And that is where they were pumping 7 chemicals continuously through my body. I could never be unhooked from it. It was 7 high-dose chemotherapy chemicals. I could never be unhooked. I begged them, please, just for 5 minutes. Nope. That's just the process. And it did. I have to say that one, I didn't get sick on my conventional chemo, but I was nauseous and sick quite often with this.
So which was worse, the radiation or the chemo?
I will say, now, conventional chemo I didn't have any trouble with as far as sickness, but definitely the stem cell transplant was by far the worst. It's kind of interesting. I looked at it. It's like I feel like I hit it hard and was done. Whereas the radiation, it went on for so long, and then your conventional chemo. Some people have to do conventional chemo for 9 months, or spend their life. So for me, I felt like, okay, let's just hit it hard and be done. And we were. And so then after the 3 days, so it was 3 full days that I had the 7 chemicals continuously going through me, I actually ended up with a staph infection. So as you can imagine, with the chemo, it actually took my white cells down to 0. And they actually had a board in my room, and they would come in every day. They would write down where my white cells counts were. So here we are. I have a staph infection, and I have absolutely nothing to fight it with. Nothing. So they had to fight it for me. And so then not only do I have these 7 chemicals going, now I have 3 antibiotics pumping through my body. And I'm going to say the worst part of that whole thing was the night I had to sleep. I called it an ice mattress, but I had a fever and they couldn't get it down. And it was obviously deadly. And so I had to sleep on, it felt like a air mattress hooked up to an air conditioner with cold air pumping in it constantly. And that's how they were trying to get the fever down. So finally, fortunately, I'm here. So I did get through that.
So that tumor is no longer an issue for you, correct?
That is correct. So then after that, after we did all the chemo and fought the infection, 3 days after I finished the chemo is when they reinfused your stem cells. So they had taken my stem cells and irradiated them. So then they reinfused them into my body. And it was just like a system reboot is what I call it. And so then we started watching after they did the reinfusion, and it's all done through like a port I had. And we started watching my white cell count come back up. So then I was able to go home by Christmas. I did make it home to have Christmas with my kids. I did miss a couple birthdays because we have a lot of December birthdays. I didn't know for Christmas, and then after that, there was not. I didn't have to do any more treatment. I take that back. I did have to do radiation. So.
Okay, but unfortunately, that was not the final chapter in your journey. It seemed like you were on a good path until the year 2008. What happened?
That is correct. So I was, because I did not do a mastectomy or anything, so I was still doing my mammograms. And I went in 2008, and so obviously we've been good for several years there, and 11 years to be exact. And then they found what's called micro-calcifications. And I just kind of call those, I think of those as an unorganized tumor. So they were cancerous. They did a biopsy. They were cancerous. And the kind of the fascinating part of this story is I have my 2 oldest boys were playing, all my kids were playing sports, but my oldest boy was in high school at that time playing baseball, and he was being looked at to be drafted to play professional baseball or go to college. So one day, I had gone into the doctor, we did the biopsy. We're sitting around the internet at that time waiting to see if my son was getting drafted. And my doctor called me on my fax phone, so I couldn't use my cell phone and walk into the other room. So we're all there as a family. And he tells me, Sheila, it's back. And I said, okay, then we're going to take them off. I don't want them anymore. They're trying to kill me. So we're going to get rid of them. So here we are just a few minutes before that phone call. We got the news my son had been drafted. And so at the highest of highs, then it was at the lowest of lows all of a sudden. But as a family, we just buckled up. We went and celebrated the baseball and just moved forward with cancer. We're going to move forward.
And was there a certain procedure you wanted to use to address this second diagnosis?
So I did a little bit of research, and I have to say I've always been overweight. I have always had a bit of a weight problem, and I wanted to do, so my doctor at that time, he was going to go in, we were going to do the mastectomy and start the reconstruction all at once. So they did that. And so we just did that. I just did, the implants, and we were going to go from there. And I had a little bit of trouble with them. Nothing serious, but eventually I decided I wanted to see if I could get a DIEP flap. And what that is they take skin from another part of your body and reconstruct your breast completely. Well, they actually, like, that was, I wanted it where they would take it from my stomach. Hello, I was hoping to get a little flat tummy there. It didn't work out that well. And so the doctor, the plastic surgeon I was with, didn't do it. So I went to another one, and she says, oh, yes, I do it, but you need to lose 20 pounds. I'm thinking, cool. This is going to motivate me to lose 20 pounds. Yeah, it didn't. 10 years later, I had gained 10 pounds. So that didn't work out quite the way I wanted. And so at that time, 10 years later, I decided this is not going to happen for me. And I went on a weight loss program. I did get the weight off. And by the time I went back to her, she no longer did that DIEP flap. And the reason for that is it's very extensive surgery, and it takes a lot of support after the surgery. And she was not in a setting that could supply that support. So she said, okay, no problem. I can make them good for you. And so she fixed me all up, and I've been happy ever since.
And how exciting is it to have both of those diagnoses in your rearview mirror? And it sounds like your physical life is close to a normal physical life. It has. I kind of cost it myself by letting myself go a bit. But I did. After all of this, I just decided I was going to live life, be with my kids. I'm very active in church, and I felt like I was a miracle. And then a few years after all of that, we moved back to Arkansas. Actually, during COVID, we moved back to Arkansas, and I got a new oncologist there. And I've been going for the annual checks, and I walked in, and fortunately he was well versed in the stem cell transplant. And so we were meeting, and I'm waiting for him to say, okay, we're going to have to do all these tests. And he says, you know what, Sheila? He says, I consider you cured. I tell you, I just started sobbing, and I'm not a crier. I just never imagined that I would hear those words. So I feel like I am a walking miracle, and I love to encourage people not to lose hope, because we don't know. I was stage 4. That's not necessarily a good diagnosis, but, here I am. Wonderful. Our guest is Sheila Romanski of Corona, California, and we're about to wrap up, Sheila, but I do want to talk about, we've talked about the past, and I want to talk about the here and now. After all you've been through, you're doing stuff to give back, and you have a nonprofit. Could you tell us about it?
Yes, thank you for that. And I do think it's really important while we're going through treatment and afterwards that we do find something positive to focus on, so that we don't have to focus on ourselves and all that we're going on, because it's going to be there no matter what. So I support cancer patients. I have a great team of women, and we support cancer patients, men, women, and children. And it's called Crystal Roses. Our website is crystalroseshelps.com. We'd love to have anybody go visit. But we do support, and we provide a comfort tote, and it's filled with goodies that will help the cancer patient with their chemotherapy. A beanie, a cup, a blanket. People don't realize when you lose your hair, you lose your nose hair, and you have a runny nose. So we put Kleenex in the bag. So there's just, little things like that experientially not everybody knows about.
Now, it sounds like you deal with a lot of people in Orange County, California in person. But if somebody goes to your website, somebody who lives in another part of the country or somebody who lives in another country, what can the website do for anyone who goes to the site?
Yeah, so there's a contact us button, and we call ourselves international because we have mailed to Australia, we've mailed totes to England, and of course we don't really have a lot of dialogue back and forth with them, but we have been able to send those. And our totes, what we feel like, it's just letting the cancer patient know you are not alone. There are others that have been there and are there with you.
Excellent. Sheila, that's quite a journey you've been on. The tumor in your shoulder and 2 bouts with breast cancer, and yet you're still going strong. That all by itself is a source of inspiration for anybody on any type of cancer journey. So, Sheila, thanks for sharing your story with us. Thanks for being with us on Cancer Interviews.
Thank you, Bruce. It was a pleasure.
And we want to remind you when we conclude, as we always do at this stage, that if you or a loved one are on a cancer journey, as Sheila says, you are not alone. There are people out there like Sheila Romanski that are there to help and make that cancer journey a little bit easier. So until next time, we'll see you on down the road.